soul has often found relief, and oft escaped the tempter's snare. By thy return, sweet hour of prayer, sweet hour of prayer, sweet hour of prayer, the joy I feel, the bliss I share, of those whose anxious spirits burn with strong desires for thy return. With such I hasten to the place where God my Savior shows his face, and gladly take my station there, and wait for thee, sweet hour of prayer. Sweet hour of prayer, sweet hour of prayer, thy wings shall my petition bear. To him whose truth and faithfulness engage the waiting soul to bless, and since he bids me seek his face, believe his word and trust his grace, I'll cast on him my every care, and wait for thee, sweet hour of prayer. There is a habitation built by the living God for all of every nation who seek that grand abode. O Zion, lovely Zion, I long thy gates to see. O Zion, lovely Zion, when shall I dwell in thee? A city with foundations firm as the eternal throne, nor wars nor desolations shall ever move a stone. O Zion, lovely Zion, I long thy gates to see. O Zion, lovely Zion, when shall I dwell in thee? No
evening. I believe the ladies outnumber us 3-1. They're about to come out of the classroom, and that's great to see. It encourages my wife. It's in almost every seminar. The ladies will have more in attendance than the men, and it's that imbalance tonight that really spurs my lesson. And so I'm grateful that I get to talk to the men tonight because there are some things, gentlemen, that we need to discuss as men. And I hope and pray tonight that this lesson will challenge you, that this lesson will not just step on your toes, but penetrate your hearts, that it will speak directly to you as men. And I'm going to speak to you as men tonight. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. I spent time with your elders during the day. Throughout this week, in fact, we've had an opportunity to get to know each other. And it's been nothing but just a pure pleasure. Ken and his good wife Lisa today took us various places, and just to get to know them and your other elders. I'm impressed with your leadership at this church, and I know that good things are going to come. By 1967, there was one Christian for every 84 people in this country. That's one member of the Church of Christ for every 84 people in this nation. From 1947 to 1953, we doubled in size. The Church of Christ was growing at such a pace, so rapidly, that we literally employed teams of men to travel this nation and build church buildings as quickly as they could. And these teams of men would go from town to town and build the old A-frame church buildings with the elongated auditoriums and the classrooms on the side. You can always know you're in that building because they have the dark paneling, and you walk inside. They're all over the landscape of this nation. And we could not build these church buildings fast enough because we were growing so rapidly. Churches were not dividing because of difference. They were dividing because they had no more room. And they had to build another church building. And this continued to happen through the 1970s. In fact, when the dictionary committee came together for the American Oxford Dictionary, something happened. In fact, when I was at a lectureship, Brother Ronnie Hayes, who will be coming for your fall meeting, he had me come and speak on evangelism. Brother Ronnie called me for several years. He would say, "Rob, would you speak on evangelism at our evangelism lectureship?" I said, "Brother Hayes, I would love to." I said, I don't have it. I don't have the room in my schedule. And he would call me each year. And he finally, one year, he called me and says, "Brother Rob, would you come and speak the lectureship on evangelism?" I said, "Brother Ronnie, he said, but listen, I'm on your website right now, and I see an opening." He said, "And you're going to be home." And I said, "Oh, Brother Hayes," I said, "I'll come." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll come in and I'll speak on evangelism, and I'll come back home." It's about a 2-hour drive from my home. And he says, no. He said, "I want you to speak on Friday, all lessons." I said, "Brother Hayes," I said, "Okay, then I'll come." He said, no, I want you to speak on Saturday, all lessons." I said, "That does not sound like a lectureship to me." And in any case, so I gave him all the lessons I had. And I remember this church well, Adamsville Church of Christ, if I'm not mistaken. And his brother, great late Franklin Camp, spent many years, one of the true scholars of the kingdom. I really believe that. And anyway, there's this man, and he was sitting in the front pew, and I don't know his name. Maybe Brother Hayes could refresh my memory. He had to be in his 90s, had a cane. He's still over 6 foot tall, hunched over a little bit. And brethren were coming to greet us as we finished the training seminar. And he held this book in his hand, held it tightly through the entirety of the lectureship. He walks up to me and he says, "Preacher, for years, men have tried to pry this book out of my hands, and I wouldn't give it to them. It's yours. You can have it." And I was taken back because I could obviously see it meant something to him. So I didn't know what I held in my hand. I began to look for autographs, I said this. But then as I thumbed through it, I noticed it said American College Dictionary. And I thought to myself, I've got 11, 12 dictionaries in my library. What do I need? He said, "Oh, preacher, it's not any dictionary." He said, "You need to understand that's a 1957 American College Dictionary." He said, in the 50s, the dictionary committee came together, and they noticed that there was a growth, that there was a a significant movement in our nation among Christianity. And he says, so they decided to alter the definition of Christian, or to add an additional definition. I'm saying, well, man, he said, it's in this book. I said, well, I want to see this. So I opened up the book, and I began looking for the term Christian, and I'm actually going to turn to it and read from it, and I want you to listen. Here it is, Christian. I want you to listen to it. All right, pertaining to or deriving from the teachings of Jesus Christ, not earth-shattering. Okay, number 2. Believing in or belonging to the religion of Jesus Christ. I don't see it. Pertaining to Christianity. Number 4, exhibiting the Spirit of Christ. Number 5, one who believes in Jesus Christ. And I keep reading down through the list. And a Christian is a Campbellite, a member of the Church of Christ. The church was so moving in this nation. We permeated through governments nationally and locally, and state officials, through universities and colleges. We permeated through society and to my knowledge, they have never used any religious group other than the Church of Christ to define the word. I realize tonight that you heard a term that you may not be familiar. Campbellite. I suspect in your life, son, you've never been called a Campbellite, have you? And there's a reason for that. Now, I was called a Campbellite when I was young. And the reason that you've not been called a Campbellite is because most people don't know the difference between the Church of Christ and a Mennonite. But when I was growing up, see, they made fun of the church. And that term was used to make fun of you. And they would call you a Campbellite in derision. The reason you don't need to be called a Campbellite today is because you've done their job for them by staying in your church building, and you no longer get out and teach anybody. You're not a threat. At one time, the Church of Christ was converting people by the tens of thousands and by the million. We were 2.5 million of us by the year 1973. If you want to see it, I'll put it right here. You can read about it. It's right there. But I would strongly suggest, brethren, we need to get back to a time where people know who we are. And when you say, I'm a member of the Church of Christ, it means something again. Brothers, tonight, we need men to stand in the gap. We need men to lead evangelism. We need men to make evangelism the centerpiece of the church. And if the Church of Christ is going to be effective, it's going to start because men are willing to lead it. Men are willing to put their toys down. Men are willing to take time out of their schedule and to make sure that evangelism is front and center, leading their homes, leading the church. And many of our men, they're absent without leave. You can't find them. They're too busy with their boats, and they're too busy with their airplanes, and they're too busy with whatever it is they work on, their cars, their hunting shacks. And when it comes to our hunting, believe you me, we're prepared. And we'll go out there and put our food plot out, won't we? We'll put our camouflage out there, and we'll sow the seed. And we don't complain when we got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We love it. And we'll make sure that we're dedicated to that, and we're going to be the best we can. We don't only have the cameras out there. We got the Wi-Fi cameras. We can watch that buck. We know what time he comes by. We know what time he feeds. We know what time we're going to pull the trigger. I wonder how many men tonight are willing to put as much time into the church, put as much time into reaching lost souls, to put as much time into trying to help our families develop so that we are an army of soldiers trained and ready to go and take the gospel to our neighbors, friends, and family as we are with our deer hunting, as we are with our fishing, as we are with our wood shops, as we are with our hobbies, our football games, our basketball games. We're so distracted. I'm not opposed to boats. I'm not opposed to fishing and hunting. I think every man needs to have his time. But brethren, the Lord needs some time, and it's more than just on Sunday morning. The Lord needs time. He needs time because we need to be His servants, His ambassadors. We've got to get out there and represent the Lord, and that we are soldiers. And when you look at the early church, The early church had the components it needed to grow. I want you to take your Bibles to Ephesians chapter 4. We're going to walk through this just very briefly. And we're going to look at something. This is important. Ephesians chapter 4. Look at verse number 11. As Paul here is describing the development of the early church. You know, the church was born in Acts 2. It was given birth, but she didn't have all her components. It was going to develop, and as the church developed, there were key things God needed to be in place. Look at verse 11. He gave some to be apostles. The early church needed apostles, didn't have elders. There were no elders in Acts 2. You're going to have to grow them. You're going to develop them. So the apostles are needed. They're inspired men. We needed those men. Watch this. And we needed some to be prophets. We didn't have a written word of God. They couldn't refer to book of Matthew. There was no book of Matthew. And so we had prophets, inspired teachers, it says, teachers, men that could speak by the inspiration of God. But look at what else they had. They had evangelists. I want to know, where are the evangelists? We got youth ministers, involvement ministers, community life ministers. We got young professional ministers. I want to know where the evangelists are. We got titles for every group under the sun. When I ask our local churches, who's your evangelist? One thing I'm seeing, and I like it, positive. I'm seeing churches hire evangelists. They got a preacher and they hire an evangelist. And they say, your job is to be the evangelist job. You know what it is? This may surprise you. And until I did a deep dive into this, I didn't know. I wouldn't have given you the right answer. An evangelist's job is in verse number 12. The evangelist is to, notice this, for the equipping of the saints. What was the job of an apostle? To equip the saints. What was the job of an evangelist? To equip them, not to go out there and do all the work for you, to equip you, to train you. Brother, we need evangelists to train our church members. We need men that can step up and say, I'll be the evangelist, I'll learn it, I'll make it my centerpiece, and I'll train you how to do it. Evangelists don't do all the evangelism, but they equip the church to do it. Look at verse number 12. For the equipping, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying and the building up of the body of Christ. It's going to be hard to have a church built properly if we don't have evangelists. You ask a church, do you got a youth minister? They got 1, 2, and 3. Now, how's that working for you, by the way? In the last 20 years, how's the youth minister model, what's it done for us? I don't think it's a sin. I've worked with youth ministers, and I love them. But I'm asking a question, what's it done for us? Are our youth more faithful? Do we have a higher retention rate? Do you see lots of conversions in the youth ministry? I'm just asking. I think we can ask questions. Job asked questions. I'm not charging anybody foolishly. I'm not making any accusations. I'm asking simple questions. Well, I know this. Where are the evangelists? And you can hardly find them. You can hardly find a church that has just one. But according to this right here, the evangelist helps us. What does the evangelist help us do? To equip the church till we come into the unity of faith, verse number 13. The knowledge of the Son of God, to become a full-grown man, verse number 13, unto the measure and of the nature and the fullness of Christ. We need them. I'm going to make a plea. I make a plea to every eldership, every church. You need to find your evangelists. Who are they? We need to develop them, because in order to become a church, a mature church, we need those evangelists to work with our local church. Now, it can be a preacher, it can be an elder, it can be a deacon, it can be someone you can be someone you bring from the outside that you know is a great evangelist, and you say, I want you to just focus on this. The Abington Church recently did that in Virginia. They brought in evangelists. They hired an evangelist. Said, your job is to evangelize. In fact, I can name you 12 churches that have done that in the last 2 years. That your job is to help us. And sometimes you have somebody from within that can just dedicate themselves to this. Brother, we're fighting a war for the souls of men and women, and I'm afraid we got one hand tied behind our back. The very tools that God has given us, they're not available. We're not ready. So what I want to do in this lesson is I want to appeal to your manhood. I want to challenge you in your very core to step up as men and to be soldiers in the army of Christ. Winston Churchill was known to be one of the great orators of world history. Some historians have written that the speeches that he gave towards the beginning of the war may have been some of the greatest speeches of the last century and responsible for turning the tide of the war. Neville Chamberlain was an appeaser. The German army was a unique, it was almost an experimental army. In all of warfare, never had a nation seen what Germany was about to do. They were on a war footing. They'd been on a war footing for years. Their factories had full capacity. Did you know at the beginning of World War II, Hitler was actually dialing down his factories' production models because he thought he had too much? He had too many airplanes, too many tanks. Hitler was on a war footing. The rest of the world was not. And the German army, they used something called the Blitz. And what that means is they would line up their overwhelming and superior manpower on one side. And then as quickly as they could, would overwhelm the other side, not taking every town, but just overwhelm them. And they started with France. France had not a prayer. The nation of France, that world power, that had been a world power for hundreds of years, fell in days. Just like that. Winston Churchill knew, we're next. They're coming. They're coming, we're next. And then, of course, the German Luftwaffe, their Air Force. Again, technology unlike the world had ever seen, now begins their bombing raids. And London is in their sights. The people now are going down into the basement to try to survive as the bombs would go off and as the sirens would prepare them. And Winston Churchill knows, if something is not done quickly, we're going to lose this war. So he goes and he does something that is given great credit. He addresses the Parliament in a speech. The Parliament in Britain is kind of like the Congress in the United States, composed of different chambers. And here is one of his phrases. He said, "He who fails to plan is planning to fail. My fellow countrymen, we have no plan and we're going to lose this war." It rattled the people and the Parliament. And they elected him prime minister. He knew that the morale of his people was very low. And he needed to do something quickly to change it. He said, "Send me to the military academy." So they got in his car, his top hat, his cane. And they took him all the way out to the military academy. They said, "Mr. Prime Minister, what are you going to say?" He said, "Put me in front of those men." Those young men knew where they were going. They were afraid. They knew that they're going to war. No, it said that the prime minister got before them and dignitaries and the parliamentaries and all the top chiefs and those soldiers, those young soldiers ready to graduate, sat in that auditorium. And he walks up and they say it's his greatest speech. It's only 4 words. Never give in. And he sat down. Dead silence in the crowd. And then one by one they stood and they applauded. And he stirred the hearts of the people. Brother, we need a heart stirring tonight. We need a heart stirring in the churches. Because right now our churches are falling. Every 3 days we lose a church of Christ in this country. 111 every single year shut their door. How many more churches have to close their doors before we get busy? Before we make this the most important work of the church? Brethren, I didn't write the Great Commission. God did. And it's called the Great Commission because the orders were given by none other than our commander-in-chief. He is the captain of the Lord's army. And he is calling on us to go into all the world, including our local community, and preach the gospel. I want to give you quickly 10 things you need to do as a church if you want to be successful. Number one, you need to procure your equipment. You need to go to the quartermaster and you need to get your boots. You need to get your equipment, your uniform. We need to make sure our members are equipped. Now, when it comes to equipping our churches, believe you me, we're prepared. We got the coffee pot, coffee filter, coffee creamer, coffee cups, coffee stirrers, coffee grind, coffee. We have everything we need for our coffee. And when it comes to refrigerators and microwaves and ovens and forks and silvers and spoons and knives and sugar and salt and pepper and tablecloths and tables and chairs, we're prepared. I want to know, are we prepared for the mission? Are we preparing our people to complete the mission? We need Bibles. Brethren, our culture has really changed. When I grew up, if I were to ask my neighbor if they'd have a Bible, they'd say yes. Just about everybody has a Bible. So I'm going to tell you what we've done recently in this school. We've started sending people out in churches, and we're saying, I want you to ask one question. And I want you to ask them, do you have a Bible? We started in Columbus, Ohio, the most liberal city in Ohio. Transgender flags are all over the downtown. And I said, so this is a very liberal city. Okay, it's very challenging for Christians, but we go right down into that city. I said, I just want you to go up and down the streets and ask people, do you have a Bible? Guess what we found? They don't. You know what the reception was? Yeah, I take a Bible. We had not one person say, I don't want one. Not one. Every person we asked, and they said, we don't have a Bible. We said, yeah, we'd love to have a Bible. I said, was there any topics that would interest you? How difficult is this? It's not. And what we learned, and so now we're going door to door, and we're going onto the college campuses. Now that's what's really shocking to me. We're going on to college campuses, and we're handing out Bibles. You know what those college students want? Bibles. They don't have one. They want one, and they'll engage you. I think there's hope in the new generation. I really do. I think I see hope. I see light. I see people that are saying, hey, what's going on out there is not working. I'll read that Bible. They hadn't read a Bible in their life. And I want to know, is the Church of Christ ready to give out Bibles? Are we ready to give Bibles? I mean, we ought to have boxes of Bibles. We send boxes of Bibles to India. We send boxes of Bibles to Honduras. We buy printing press. When I was at Willette, we bought $1 million printing press to print Bibles. I'm not against printing Bibles, brother, but we ought to have some Bibles here. We ought to get ready for our members to pass out Bibles. It's not hard to do. Do we have equipment to teach people about the Bible, like back to the Bible? Doesn't matter, believe the Bible. Do we have door hangers? Do we have materials to bring people, teach people new convert material? We need to get prepared. There's no army in the world that's going to survive if they don't have the equipment. One of the great deficiencies of the South during the Civil War was they didn't have equipment. They struggled. They struggled to get uniforms. And if you got an army and you can't put a uniform on them, if you can't equip them, you're in real trouble. Number two, place it in a highly visible place. You put it out there where the people can get it. Don't lock it in a preacher's office. Don't put it in a filing cabinet and lock it up. If the members can't get to it, they're never going to utilize it. Put an evangelism table in your hallway. And you get a nice tablecloth that says evangelism. And you put that material on that table and you say, come and get what you need. You know, we're more than willing to let the members have whatever they want. You know, they go into the teacher's workroom, they take the crayons, the map pencils, the paper, the Astro Bright paper, the glue sticks, and don't forget the safety scissors. We'll have those too. I want to know where the evangelism material is. Let's put it out there where they can get it. Brother, it's so basic. You can't hide the material. And a lot of churches, when you ask, where's your evangelism material? They say, well, it's in the closet. Well, what good is that doing your church members? Now, you know, I was at a church, and I could spend 30 minutes right here. I'm just going to tell one of my stories. I had a church call me, and they said, Rob, we're struggling. You trained us, you enrolled us. I know you did last year, but we dropped the ball, Rob. We need a reboot. I said, okay. I said, brother, I'm tied up. He said, well, no, your first Sunday of this next year, you're available. Got on your schedule. He said, we're only a few hours away. Could you think you pop in and give us? I said, well, I'll come and help you. I said, if you'll do it, I'll help you. And so I walked in that church, and when I walked in the church, the first thing I'm looking for is their evangelism table, because it's step one. Nowhere to be found. Now, this church has spent thousands of dollars trying to get material for their members, and I know they have. And I'm looking around and saying, well, maybe they used it all. I'm optimistic. And so I went through my lessons, and I went through my training sessions, and as Sunday morning, I remember finishing my sermon, I walked down the aisle. There was a young man, about your age, son. And when I walked past him, he walked with me. And I noticed him through my right shoulder, came back to the back. He goes, Mr. Rob. I said, yes. He said, you got any of those little booklets? I said, yes. He said, I got my best friend in high school, and I want to teach him. Can I get your booklets? I said, let me see if I have them. Yes, I do. And so I said, yes, I gave them to him. And as I was giving him the booklets, and it dawned on me, I said, son, you got these booklets somewhere in this church building? He said, what do you mean? I said, these Back to the Bibles, you about 400 sets. He said, well, I've never seen them. So I meet with the elders that afternoon, and they say, all right, Brother Rob, what would you suggest we do? I said, brother, where are the materials you bought? Where are? The elders put their head down. One man said, well, Rob, they're in the closet over there. I said, what good is that doing your church members? Brother, I love elders. They're my best friends. My dad was an elder, my grandfather. But here's the point. We cannot lock the materials in a closet and expect our members to evangelize. Put it in the foyer. Let them have whatever they need. If they need muscle and a shovel, give it to them. All the things that we're authorized to spend money on. I had a church not long ago. They said, Rob, we got to show you what we've done here in this church building. And so they took me outside, and they said, look at that parking lot. And I could smell the oil. And it was thick. I said, wow. He said, yeah, we've been saving on this one. He said, Rob, it cost $200,000 to do this parking lot. I said, wow. And we're going to get nervous when we have to buy Back to the Bible. We can spend $200,000 on a parking lot, but we cannot provide our members evangelism equipment. Something's wrong. Number 3, we need to provide training. How many of you men have ever been to a training class for work? Raise your hand. Ever been to a training, safety training for some equipment? Everybody? Just about everybody goes to training. And why do they train you? Brother Ken, you spent your life in training. Is that not right? That's it. Why? Why do they train you? To do it right, right? They want you to be ready, right? So you're always getting training, and they're always updating the training and new equipment and new things they find out. And now let's get down to brass tacks. When's the last time you went to a training class at a church where they trained you what to do when a visitor walks through the door? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught you how to greet a new mover in your community and what to do? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us how to conduct a Bible study? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us, I don't know, how to pass out an invitation card, how to write a compassion card, what to do with the new convert, how to become a mentor, how to do it, knock a door? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us maybe even how to baptize somebody? Brother, I grew up in the church. I can tell you, I never went to such a class. It wasn't offered. And of all the things we should be training our members to do, we need training. I mean, we train at work. We spend count. My dad was in charge of the training department for Delta Airlines on this Boeing 737 aircraft. When he got out of the Navy, he went to work at Southern Illinois University as a professor. Got tenure. His students made more money than he did, so he went to the airlines. He got there and he worked, and as he was training, he wrote the book. And he would tell me about their budget. He'd tell me about how much time they would spend with their employees training them, how important it was, and the detail, and the tests they took. It's extremely important. If you don't train your workers, your company doesn't function. In fact, a mistake at that level may bankrupt you. You don't want to make a mistake. I don't know why we don't see that in the church. Souls are at stake. Our children, our neighbors, the people we work with, we've got to train the people. I'm not talking about a sermon. I'm talking about an actual training class where maybe you have mock demonstrations. Maybe you have props that you bring in. You put tools in the hands of the people. You spend time helping them learn how to use it. Because isn't that what you do at work? And we all know that's important, don't we? Number 4, you got to promote an evangelistic atmosphere in your church. Brother Jerry Jenkins was known to be one of the most evangelistic preachers in his era. The Roebuck Parkway Church of Christ. Anybody remember that name? Roebuck Parkway Church, just out Birmingham, Alabama. 2,000 members. And it was an incredible church. And I've been able to speak to elders that are there. And I've asked them questions like, do you remember Jerry Jenkins? Yes. I was just in the college ministry. I remember him. Tell me, and this is my question. Before we lose this generation, what do you remember about what made him so good? I'm going to tell you 2 things. Number 1, they said, Rob, he used the word funnel, and he called it the funnel effect. And he said everything that church did funneled through evangelism. So if we had a backpack drive, it funneled through evangelism. If we gave out shoes, it funneled through evangelism. We gave out teddy bears, it funneled through evangelism. We gave out eyeglasses, it funneled through evangelism. If we had a graduation banquet, it funneled through evangelism. There wasn't anything that went in or out of that church that did not focus on winning souls. I said, man, that's good. I bet Walmart has the same model, don't you? Think about Walmart. Think about the retail stores. You think Walmart in their corporate office, and I think that's in Arkansas, and do you think they get together and they talk about, what can we do? What can we do to sell rental cars? Do you think they do that? No, they said, what can we do to sell product? And they focus all of their time on selling product, right? And they're experts at it, and they train their people how to do it. Everything funnels through selling product. If somebody comes up with an idea, well, what about this? Is it going to sell product? No, we're not doing it. I just have a sneaky suspicion it's something like that. How about Chick-fil-A? You think everything Chick-fil-A does is about selling the chicken? Eat more chicken. Remember the billboards? You think it's all about the chicken? Of course it is. In the church, we have all of these activities going on. We have trips, all these functions and celebrations. And if you were to add up, if you were just to, I don't know, maybe write down all the things on your 2025 calendar the church does, I challenge you to do that. I had one eldership actually did it. They showed me the list. And they said, Rob, there wasn't 10% of them that had anything to do with saving souls. Can you imagine if Walmart ran like that? Can you imagine Chick-fil-A ran their business like that? Can you imagine a sports team, football team, and their whole job? What's the job of a football team, coach? What's your job? Win. Win. And everything you do is about winning. Let's just suppose 90% of what you did had nothing to do with winning games. You're done. You're done. You're over. You're finished. And so don't you as a coach try to get rid of the distractions? You try to get rid of everything that doesn't have anything to do with you winning ball games. That's what Jerry Jenkins did. He's good at it. Really good at it. Let me tell you what happened with the Carnes Church of Christ in Knoxville, Tennessee. Great church. They called us and said, hey, we want to enroll in the school, but we want the campaign. I said, we have to wait 2 years for that because it's 2 years before I have an opening for a big campaign. They said, we'll wait. So as we were preparing, one of the elders called me and said, Rob, we got a backpack drive that we do, but we want it to be an evangelistic backpack drive. We pass out 400 backpacks a year. We have nothing to show for it. And I said, okay. And they said, when you come, I want you to talk to the deacon of the backpacks, and I want you to help him develop an evangelistic approach to backpacks. I said, sounds good. So I gave it a lot of thought. I really did, because I never even looked at this before. But I thought, here are some things you would do. So I met with the deacon. I said, Mr. Deacon, explain to me what you do. We put all the backpacks outside. We line up the cars. We put out the yellow tape. We run them through the awning, and we pass out as many backpacks as we possibly can pass out, 400 or more. And we got the room of the backpacks, crayons, scissors. Never seen so many scissors. And so they're ready. And I said, he says, Mr. Rob, he said, the elders said I should maybe ask you about how to make it evangelistic. I said, here's what I do. I put the backpacks in the classrooms. Huh? I said, put them in the Bible classrooms. And then I would require the people who come get the backpacks to walk in your church building. By the way, you have a beautiful church building. And I would do an open house and walk them through the church building and let them know where things are located. And then a family should be on deck, and families should be doing this. And you should take them to the classroom where their children will be attending. They will. I'm very forward thinking. And I said we should then introduce them to the teacher, show them where their classes are at, give them the backpack, then take them to the fellowship hall where a beautiful dinner has been prepared. And we should eat with them, get their contact information, ask the introductory questions, and then walk them out to the house. Oh, Rob, I mean, man, Rob, if we did that, we would no way pass out 400 backpacks. I said, but you'll have Bible studies. And they did that day. I remember, y'all know Steve Higginbotham. He's like 6'10". Well, I don't know what he's a huge, big man. He's a preacher. He's walking down the hallway. There's this lady with her niece there, and she says, you know, I sure would like to know more about this church. Now, brother, if you can't get a Bible study out of that, you just need to quit and go home. And I said, ma'am, I tell you what, we just so happen to have these little booklets. Let me see if I have them. I do. And I said, Brother Higginbotham, I said, she would like to have a Bible study. 2 ladies, Brother Higginbotham, went into a room and they did a Bible study, and the very day they handed out the backpack. By the way, that church has baptized 120 people in 2.5 years. So if you want to argue with it, argue with that. Results are what matters. I want to see results. Instead of giving people backpacks and say good luck, let's find out a little bit more about them. I'm not against teddy bears. I'm not against shoes or eyeglasses or food. I'm not against any of it. But let's make it an evangelistic event. And when you turn your benevolent program into an evangelism program, instead of giving out coats and turkeys and we have nothing to show for it, guess what you get? You get that. Her name's Kim. She called the church and said, I just moved here and I need some help. And we said, Miss Kim, we'd love to help you. Miss Deborah Rice answered the phone, secretary. What do you need, Miss Kim? I just need a few items and just need some help. I don't know anybody. And well, Miss Kim, you called the right place. And she said, well, y'all help me? She said, sure, we'll be glad to help you. Well, wonderful. And when can I get this help? 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, and we can't wait to meet you. Oh, no, I don't know. I just too early, 9 o'clock. I don't function well. That's okay, Kim. We do it again at 10 o'clock, and we'll look forward to seeing you. The morning is just out for me. Don't worry, Kim. We do it again at 5 o'clock. We can't wait to meet you. Sundays are just out for me. Well, Kim, that's okay. We do it again on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet you. I don't have a car. Don't worry, we'll pick you up. And we did. You know why? Because we made a policy change. The policy change was, if you're going to get benevolent help, you're coming to church. You're going to walk in the church building and sit with us, and we're going to get to know you. And you just might go to the prospective membership class where they're teaching back to the Bible. Just maybe. Oh, there's a lot to this. You know, Northern Oaks baptized 27 people doing that. 27 people in 1 year. They've gone from 90 to 140 members. And you know what they do? They require people who want help to come to the prospective membership class and learn about the church. Well, we're glad to help you. After church, we took Kim to go get some food, and we got to know her, and we became very good friends. And one day, Nicole and I were sitting on the couch, and as the members have gone out of their way sending cards and helping her, Miss Kim, I got a question for you. Well, yes. I said, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Oh, I love it. Nicest people I've ever met. Miss Kim, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Really, I don't know a lot about y'all, except you're the nicest people I've ever met. Miss Kim, would you like to know more about it? She knows, I kind of would. I just so happen to have these little booklets. They're called Back to the Bible. By the way, if you want to meet Kim Bullock, she's a faithful member. And she'll be glad to talk to you about evangelism, because she would not be a Christian without it. What if we did the normal thing churches do? Well, we got a food pantry. We'll give you one bag. Oh, here's a tract for the church. Am I off base with that? Isn't that what we normally do? I preached for 23 years. That's how we did it every time. When I started this school, I said, I got nothing to show for it. Rob, 23 years you did that. How many baptisms? 0. We changed our policy and we have baptisms. Number 5, we got to learn to make contacts. We got to learn to make contacts in our community. This is probably the most important point of the entire lesson. In fact, it's my last point. It's a 10-point sermon, but I don't have time for all 10 points. I'm going to stop here because we're going to put it in park. If you fail in this point, everything falls apart. The model is worthless. All your Bibles are for naught. Your baptistry. And I hope you have a good baptistry. I hope it's clean and ready to go. Brother Wendell Winkler once said the most neglected room in the church building is the baptistry. The library is likened unto it. I hope our baptistries are not full of cobwebs and rotting baptismal garments. I hope they're presentable. I hope we don't get scared when we walk in that a brown recluse is going to bite us. And our baptistries ought to be appealing, right? They ought to be ready to go. But we need contacts. What good's a baptistry without people? Brother Alan Webster last year gave me a topic for polishing the pulpit. He said, I want you to speak on the one thing you need if you want baptisms. I said, well, that's easy. I said, well, Alan's water. He said, well, you go study on it. Well, I sat in my office and I studied on it, and it's the wrong answer. I said, well, you need the gospel. And I studied on it, it's the wrong answer. I said, you need a teacher. I studied on it, it's the wrong answer. You know what the one thing you need if you want baptisms? People. People. You need contacts. You'll never have a baptism. What good's a teacher without contacts? Old evangelist, Brother Wakefield, T.J. Wakefield's gone to his reward. He came to visit me one day, and he says, Rob, I got some things to teach you before I die. He says, number one, the best tact is contact. And our brethren are terrible at it. Nobody wants to make contact with anybody outside the church building. You got to make contacts. So how do you do that? Well, where does Walmart get their contacts from? Where do they get them? What's the number one source for contacts for Walmart? What's the number one source of contacts for Delta Airlines? What's the number one source of contacts for Ford Motor Company? I saw you driving a Ford, Brother Ken. I saw it today. Nice truck. What's the number one source for contacts for Ford Motor Company? You know who it is? It's you. Man, you got to see my truck. It's got a referral. You know it's free. You know referrals are free. When you go to a store and you talk them up and you say, man, that's a great hotel. You want to stay? Don't stay there. So they listen. 50% of your contacts come from your members. Now I'm going to ask a question. When's the last time the church said, I need you to give me names? I need you to refer contacts to me. In fact, how many of us right now, by raising of hands, how many of us right now know 10 people that are lost? Raise your hand. Our members know the people that are lost, right? We know who they are. You live next to them. You work with them. You hunt with them. You fish with them. I mean, you play ball with them. I mean, our people know who they are by name. And are we ever asked? Does anybody say, hey, who do you know? So we need to develop a target list. My father taught me how to shoot when I was very young. He brought me out to the back pasture and he said, son, here's an 1897 octagon barrel 22 pump. Old gun, but man, they're still around. He says, you're going to learn to shoot with this gun. And he says, you'll never hit a target you don't aim at. Aim small, miss small. I want to know tonight, gentlemen. I'm going to challenge your manhood. Where is your target list? Who's on your list? Are you aiming at them? What are their names? What are their names? How old are they? Where do they live? What are you doing to reach them? Because you know what? If we would spend as much time worrying about the people that are lost as we worry about everything else we do, we might just save a soul. And so the first thing I recommend is we got to learn how to do that. You're going to learn. You're going to learn. Number two, you got to advertise your presence. You got to let people know you're here. If advertising didn't work, Walmart wouldn't do it. They send those little flyers out about once a month, don't they? And, Alan Webster years ago, 30 years ago, decided we can do the same. So he came up with the design for House to House, Heart to Heart, an 8-page color magazine. And we send it out in your name with your information on it. And if you use it as an active evangelistic work and not a passive flyer, it'll produce for you. In fact, in my ministry in 23 years, I got more baptisms out of that than I did anything I used. But I knew how to use it. And I'm here to help you learn how to use it. I can't do that tonight, but you're going to learn. That right there will bring people. That right there will introduce the church to people. People will come because they get this and they say, I'm looking for a church. And they're going to put it in their mailbox. And you're going to do it not one time a year. This isn't some special event. Walmart doesn't do it once a year. You do it, you keep doing it. You do it every month. And take an area, not an old growth area, but a new growth area where people have not established themselves yet, and find those subdivisions. We'll help you with that. We'll mail it for you. We'll do all the work. All you got to do is follow up and advertise your church. I came back from a seminar, and I was tired. I'll just be honest. I'd been out on the road 3 weeks. I'd come back from Texas, and I was sitting in the pew, and I looked over my left shoulder, see who was, and there's this woman, never seen her before. And I said, all right. So Alan finished the sermon, and I walked down the aisle with Alan, and I went and sat right behind her because I'm going to approach her. She's a visitor. It's obvious. And so after the closing prayer was said, she stood up, I stood up, and I said, hey, my name's Rob Whitaker. I'm a member here. Are you visiting? She said, I am. My name's Ellen Bethea. I said, well, nice to meet you, Ellen. I said, Ellen, you live in the community? She said, sure do. I said, wow, I'm just glad you're. Hey, Ellen, what'd you think about our worship service? Man, I like that preacher. That preacher, he sure does love the Bible. I said, yes, Alan loves the Bible. And I said, Ellen, you by yourself? She said, well, my husband was coming, but he got sick. I said, we got a little custom at this church. We always invite visitors out to eat. She says, you know what? She says, I want my husband to come. You guys got an evening service. Glad we weren't closed. Last thing the Church of Christ needs to do is close their doors. We need to be opening doors. We need more worship, not less. Anyway, and so she said, I'll bring my husband tonight. That's what she said. I think he'll be feeling better. So they came back. We sat with them. And I got their contact information. His name is Perry. I said, hey, Perry, we got a little custom here at this church. We always invite visitors out to eat, always. That's what I said. I said, Perry, what's your favorite restaurant in Jacksonville? He said, Afina's. Ellen and Perry, I'll take you to Afina's. You take me to Afina's? I said, why not? He said, wow. He said, feeling a little squeamish tonight, Rob. Can I take a rain check to like Tuesday? I said, sure. If I'm going to Afina's, I want to eat. It'll take me till Tuesday to pay for this meal. I don't ask that question anymore. I pick Zaxby's, no Afina's. And so anyway, so we go to Afina's. We walk inside. I could care less about the lasagna. I sit down. I'm going to go through my 3 questions. Perry, where are you from? Perry, what do you do for a living? Perry, what do you like to do? He says, I like sports. I said, me too. I said, what do you like, NFL football? He says, no, disrespectful. I don't watch that anymore. Me neither. I don't care what his answer is. I'm not there to argue with him. Okay? So whatever he says, I'm good with it. Perry, like NBA basketball? No, don't watch that. I said, okay. Baseball. Perry, like baseball? Too slow. I'm not sure, okay. Perry, what is it you like? He says, it's all in the college, Rob. You got to watch the college. I said, yes, I agree. I said, Perry, what's your favorite team? He said, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. If I got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I don't care. I want a Bible study. That's all I want. So now I got to talk about Alabama. Oh, man. All right. Hey, Perry, you got a great coach in Nick Saban. Yeah, we got the best one. I said, you do. You do. I said, Perry said, Rob, I went to a game recently. I said, you did? They built this big statue of Nick Saban in front of the stadium. I said, I know they did. Perry, we call that idolatry. No, I did not say that. I didn't say that. I said, so we were talking about Alabama football, and it's going well, and I'm thinking, I got to get him to my house, right? That's where I want him. You remember my lessons? Okay. Perry, tomorrow is the championship game. Why don't you come to the house tomorrow? We'll watch the football game. And in fact, I think aren't we having a football? Ouch, what was that? That was my wife kicking me because she did not know about this party. And it's okay. I said, honey, I had explained on the way home how I got to this point of the party. And she said, who's coming to this party? I said, Perry and Ellen. And so we invited them over. They came to the party, just us. We watched the football game, and halftime, it was a blowout. And Perry, I want to know one thing. He said, what is it? Why did you come to the Jacksonville Church of Christ? You don't know anybody? Why? 21 years ago, Rob, y'all started sending us this magazine every week. I read it every time it comes in the mail. He said, you guys always do what the Bible says. He said, my church hasn't followed the Bible for years. He says, and we're looking for a church that follows the Bible. I said, Perry, I just so happen to have, let me see if I still have them. These little booklets are called Back to the Bible. And I said, we'd love to do them with you. He said, I think we'd like that. And we baptized Perry. We baptized Ellen. Oh, they have a son. He's 25. Baptized him too, and his wife. Because of house to house, heart to heart. We're going to promote events on the back, events that bring people. You got to think about what will bring them. And so in Jacksonville, it was alligator. It was alligator, shrimp boil, and pig day. They come for that. They don't come for hot dogs. They come for pig day, big pig day. You know, you bury the pig. Y'all do that in North Carolina. You put the pig in the ground, and y'all know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, they did the pig day, and I'd never seen a pig in Alabama. Pig day's big. All right, didn't have pig day in Texas. We have beef, and so we call brisket. But they love pig day. Man, we had 150 people come for pig day, and we baptized the whole family. What will bring them here? I don't know. I don't live in North Carolina. You got to find. We're going to advertise marriage material. We're going to advertise family material, things that families need and want. And then we're going to get a phone call. Hello? Yes, this is Deb Rice, secretary. Yeah. Oh, you want the marriage material. What's your name? Brenda. Okay, Brenda. We'll be glad to get it for you. And so she wrote down the address, and she calls me, the secretary. She says, Rob, the elders said if someone calls for the materials, we're no longer allowed to mail it. We're supposed to call you. I said, yes, we have a change in policy. What are you going to do with it? Hand deliver it. Never done that before. And that's why you're not baptizing. I said, I promise you want to hand this to me. So we grab the material. My wife and I go to Brenda's house, knock on the door. Always bring your wife or a woman. Don't go alone. I promise you don't do it, fellas. When they see this thing on your face, they will never open the door. Bring your wife. I promise. Bring your wife. And so, anyway, she opens the door. Hello? I said, ma'am, my name's Rob, my wife Nicole. We're from house to house, heart to heart. You asked for some marriage material. Oh, I did. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you're from that house? Yes, ma'am. She said, wonderful. I said, well, here it is. Thank you so much. And I said, well, ma'am, did you just get married? I did. I said, well, tell me his name is Daniel. I said, well, boy, he's a lucky man. I said, I'm so glad to meet you. Did you just move here? I did, from Oxford. I said, well, great. I said, do you know a lot about the area? Not a lot. She says, it's been so wonderful to be here. And she said, sir, I got a question for you. I said, anything. Do you know where I can find a church? Yes, ma'am. I said, it's the Jacksonville Church of Christ, right down the road. Good, because I surely need one. And she said, sir, I got another question for you. Do you know anything about the Bible? No, these are real questions. I'm being at real questions. Ma'am, I know a little bit about the Bible. She said, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. And he looked, and there he is sleeping over there. I said, is that him? His name is Daniel. I don't know what that man does all day. He comes home after work, gets on the couch, goes to bed. I just want to talk to the man. And she said, and I'm so glad you're here. And I said, well, wonderful. And she said, sir, you wait right there. And she walks over to her husband. Brother, I'm telling you, this is what she took that big man, 6 foot something, 5, starts shaking him. I mean, get up, Daniel, get up. We've got company. And so Daniel gets up. She literally takes him to the door, and she puts him right in front of me. Daniel, Brenda's down here, and Daniel's right here. And she says, Daniel, we're going to teach you the Bible. I think I did that correctly. We baptized 7 of them. I said, when do you want to begin? That would have never happened if I mailed them the materials. You have got to make contact with people in your community. Go to their door. They are in your community. The fields are white unto harvest. They're not white unto harvest here. They're out there. And we got to go to them. Learn how to knock a door. You got to learn how to do this. People say, oh, it don't work. All right, argue with the numbers. I've done this. Let me tell you where I've done this. I've done this in Illinois. I've done this in Virginia. Hampton. How far are y'all from Hampton, Virginia? All right. Hampton, Virginia. That's where we did it. We've done this in Illinois, Troy, Illinois. We've done it in Georgia, Alabama, in Tennessee, in Texas. We've done it all over. I always get the same results. It's going to be very similar. And there's some numbers on there that ought to get your attention. And there's one number in particular that ought to be causing you to raise your hand and say, how'd you do that? Does anybody know what that number is? Call me out, fellas. Challenge me. What number you see up there that just doesn't seem right? 83. Thank you. Thank you. 83%. Well, how do you get an 83% success rate, Rob? They're called new movers. What if, and we get about 75 to 80% right there. And if you'll read Reaching the Lost tomorrow morning, you'll find conversions because of this. They're in there. Almost every week, a church will have a conversion because of this. All you got to do is read it. And I want you to read Aberdeen, Mississippi tomorrow when it comes to your inbox. Jonathan Hager. Please read his report. Jonathan Hager, Aberdeen, Mississippi. Because he's got a great report on new movers in Reaching the Lost this week. It'll come to your email tomorrow morning. Now, new movers. Why do new movers give us such a high rate of success? Because they have no church home. They have just moved. Let me quote David Shannon. David Shannon once said this. He's a president of Freed Hardeman. People are most likely to change churches when they move. A couple of generations ago, if a family or an individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed in that same denomination. Those days are over. He says the average person today is willing to look at any church in their neighborhood. This is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. It doesn't matter to me what church they were a part of in the last town. I want them to visit the Church of Christ because it gives us the best opportunity to sit down and study the Word of God. Right now, my wife is teaching your ladies how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. It's God authorized, and they're excited. They've never done God authorized shopping before. And they're going to tell you it's authorized. God has sent me on a mission. When the ladies go on a shopping mission for the Lord, get out of their way. And we're going to put new mover baskets together. And we're going to go visit the new movers. And I'm going to give you their name and address because I have them. You give me the city, you give me the zip code, give me the route number, and I'll give them to you. House to house knows where they live. We know their name. And let's say we sent you. Anybody here own a business? Anybody here ever own a business? Raise your hand. Bowen Company. Sir, back there. Okay. What kind of business you own? Tile. Oh, you're a perfect example. Will you role play with me just for a minute? I come to I come up to you and say, sir, my name's Rob. I own my own business. I sell addresses. And for $2, I'll give you the name and address of the people that move into your neighborhood or city. Would you like their name and address? Sure. Why would you want them? Why do you want people moving in? Why would you want that? Because that's customers. And guess what people do when they move in? They want new tile. And you would love to have that business, wouldn't you? And is it possible that you might even send them a postcard with your name on it and business name? And you might even say free estimate, right? If it's a slow time, you might say free estimate. And if you're a dentist, you might say first evaluation free. If you're Lowe's, 10% off. If you're Home Depot, 15% off. How many of you have moved and got a coupon from Home Depot? How do they get that information? Same place we do. We found out where they got it from. And we'll give it to you. New movers are excellent contacts. There are conversions that are happening every week because of this right here. But you better get trained. You better have a team put together. You can't just sit here and pray about it. You can't, well, that sounds good. Not until you do something. Not until you do something. We got to learn how to write cards. Lots of cards. I'm talking 2 to 3 cards every day per prospect. Church of your size ought to be sending 100 to 150 cards a week. And you ought to be sent not to the elders. Brother Denny don't need a card. You know who needs a card? The person with cancer that lives about 2 miles down the road. And we need to know who they are. And you work with them. I want their name and address. And we're going to send them cards for a period of weeks. And we're going to show them we love them. Card sending. You know what card sending does? It gives you this. When I got back to Jacksonville, Brother Homer Smith called me. He said, "Hey, Rob," he said, we got one that's ready for a visit, and her name's Bettina. And so my wife and I went over to Bettina's house, knocked on her door. She opened it up, and she said, "Hello." I said, "Ma'am, my name is Rob. My wife, Nicole, we're from the Jacksonville church." "Jackson, you're the card sending church." I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Well, come on in." When's the last time you knocked on the door when they saw you and they never met you before? They said, "Come on in." Has that ever happened? Why do you think they asked me to come in? Because she had 57 cards from the church sitting in her apartment. You know what the job of a card is? Oh, yeah, to baptize them. No. It's to open the door. It's to open the heart. It's to fertilize and break up the soil so you can sow seed. And that's what cards do. So she invites us in, and we sit down. She said, "Now, ma'am," she says, "what's your name again?" And Nicole said, "My name's Nicole." "Oh, honey, that's your card right there." She knew exactly where Nicole's card was. 57 cards. She pulls it down and gives it to her. How? How does she do that? Because she reads them every single day, right? You think that lifts her spirits? Think that makes her feel like somebody loves her? How hard do you think it's going to be for me to get a Bible study? How hard do you think? Remember my 3 questions? Anybody want to help me with these? Number 1, Bettina, what do you think about the Jacksonville church? "Oh, it's such a nice church. They sent me lots of cards." Number 2, Bettina, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville church? "Oh, I don't know a lot." "Bettina, would you like to know more about them?" She says, "I really would." Let me see if I have them. I just so happen to have these little booklets. Here you go, son. Go teach somebody. Let's go teach somebody. Because you can do it, he can do it, we can all do it. This is exactly how you get Christians. You can't get them sitting here. We got to go to them. So you can send all the cards you want to. You don't go visit them. You are wasting the Lord's money. You got to go make your visit. You got to go to the door, and you got to meet them. And it takes an organized army to do that, Brother Ken. You ever organize an army? Well, this army right near needs an organized. It needs trained. It needs equipped. And we got to focus on the mission. I called Alan Webster. I said, "Alan, she's ready to be baptized." He says, "Rob, I'm on my way." Visitors. Y'all have visitors that come on Sundays that are not Christians? You need them. So what's the plan when a visitor walks through the door? Like, what are we going to do? Is there an organized plan? People selected, trained? We know what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. You know what a visitor wants when they walk through those doors? You know what they want? Because if we don't know what they want, we can't give it to them. We better figure it out. So when a visitor walks through those doors, what are they looking for? What do they want? Well, I'll let you answer if you want. Don't be that bashful. What would you think they want when they walk through the door? Warm greeting? Love? I mean, think about it. What do they want? Compassion? All right. Pew Research Center did a study, and they asked that question all over the nation. Thousands of religious people. When you visit a church, what are you looking for? The number 1 answer overshadowed all other answers combined. And you have not said it yet. No. The number 1 answer is to sit down. So obvious. They just want to sit down. Do you know what the one thing we don't let visitors do when they walk through the door? That's right. We have Gabby Gossip there to greet them. And we have Angry Fred to stare at them. And we have the kiosk that comes at them. Brethren, we should have door greeters that literally walk them inside the auditorium and let them sit down. And the greeting should be very simple. But we should have pew greeters, trained, highly trained, Navy SEALs. And we're going to put them into the auditorium, 4 families per 100, and we're going to train you what to say, where to sit, and what your objective is. The mission objective is we need contact information. How are you going to get it? Here's the tool. Where are you going to sit? Here's where you're going to sit. What are you going to say? And if you achieve your mission objective, you're going to follow it up with a meal invitation. And so how do we normally get contact information in the Church of Christ? Well, let me show you how we normally do it, because we've been doing it for 50 years. Usually it cracks. We got the cards and the pew backs in front. If you take the card and fill it out, we'll get a record of your attendance. They don't want to fill out the card. But now we're sophisticated. We got QR codes. If you put your phone on the QR code, we'll get your name and address. Well, they don't want to do that either. Brethren, I got a way to get contact information that works 99 times out of 100. And I'm not exaggerating that. You know what it is? I sit down in front or behind you. I give you a gift. I introduce myself. I tell you how much we love visitors, and then I'm going to tell you we're a card-sending church, and we love to send visitors cards, and I'm going to ask you for your name and address, and you're going to give it to me 99 times out of 100, and I'm going to write it down. And the one person who will not give you their name and address, they are a serial killer. Make sure your security team knows about them. Well, probably a sex offender. Actually, that's probably what they are. They don't give out names and addresses. But that's a plan, and we need 4 families who are willing to do that. We don't want Angry Fred on this team. Do we have Angry Fred in the auditorium? You're not on the team. We want Smiley Sam. Smiley Sam, where are you? Smiley Sam, you're on the team. In other words, you've got to put people where they can have success. Not everybody's made for that. Now, brethren, I'm out of time. I've passed my time allotment. I'm sorry. I love you. I know you can do this, and I'm so grateful to the elders for having us come and be a part of this training effort, but you're just getting started. I promise this is just the groundwork. I've got so much that you're going to learn, and I'm going to learn from you. And I know you've got some godly people here that love the Lord, and souls will be saved. Maybe it's your own family. Maybe it's a neighbor. But to God be the glory, because the gospel of Christ still reaches the lost when we do our job. Someone asked, Rob, does the Great Commission work? I said, absolutely, when you work it. It works every time, but not until you do it. God bless you, brethren. Thank you.